So I'm here with Stuart Muszynski this morning. We're here to chat about some of the really interesting things he's doing out in Greater Cleveland, but based in Greater Cleveland area, but working all over the country, all over the world. Stuart, tell us your story. You're involved in this interesting work of trying to make our culture, our people, our country a better place, a kinder place. Ergo, your hat that says Kindland. But you didn't start out here. You started out doing what? What was your career path?
Well, I had an almost 20-year career in insurance and consulting. It was cut short the second half of 1992 when I started losing my memory, and the doctor told me that I was having a prescription drug reaction to something that he had given me for my esophagus, which would go into spasm from certain foods. He said, well, I'll take you off the medicine, you'll be fine. He didn't realize that you can't take somebody off cold turkey. And I got this massive withdrawal reaction, and I got chronic fatigue syndrome, and I was in bed for 2 years.
Oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it was pretty devastating. During that time, as you can imagine, the first 6 months, I'm getting more and more depressed. My wife, who's a clinical psychologist, insisted that I go see a cognitive therapist who changed my life because he asked me the question. He said, he asked me, Stuart, what questions are you asking yourself? What messages are you sending yourself? I said, well, I guess I've never thought about it before. I guess I'm telling myself I'm failing myself. I'm failing my family. I'm never going to be successful again. And he said, yeah, you know what you put in your mind translates to your action and to your body. And you need to start sending yourself daily messages of kindness, positivity, and love. I don't know if you remember Bernie Siegel. Bernie Siegel was the first mind body.
I do.
So I read Bernie Siegel's book, Love, Medicine, and Miracles, where he talks about positive visualizations. And if you can't put a positive thought in your mind, at least you put a positive picture in your mind. So 40, 50, 60 times a day, laying in bed, I would put positive pictures in my mind, climbing a mountain, getting to the top, seeing my father who had been deceased, white light coming through my body and healing all my aches and pains. I love flowers. I know you love flowers, Jim. I'd see myself planting flowers in my beautiful English cottage garden. And after about 6 months, I felt better. 6 months later, I was able to get out of bed. And during, I don't know if you've ever experienced visualization, but it's kind of a seventh sense. Once you experience it, things and pictures pop into your mind. So all of a sudden, I'm seeing myself standing in front of a group of teenagers, and I'm helping them turn around their negative environments, just like I help myself turn around my negative environment. And it's called Project Love. And I went downstairs, opened the daily newspaper for the first time in almost 2 years. And my wife's standing in the kitchen. And I said, well, the first page of the daily newspaper, the front page is kids killing kids in school. And I kind of put two and two together, and I said to my wife, I think God has a new mission in mind for us, that we need to share my experience and create this organization called Project Love and this interactive curriculum and all-day experience for teenagers. And to my surprise, she said, okay, let's do it together. And we picked a school in rural.
You always from Cleveland?
Yeah, you're always from Cleveland. Yeah, and my wife's always from Cleveland. We were high school sweethearts. We've been married for 48 years.
Does she still like you?
She still likes me. Yeah, we. Yeah, and she's still involved with the organization. She's our vice president of programming and evaluation. She's always with our innovation team. She's always innovating our new programming. And so the experience in this high school, Berkshire High School, was quite amazing because.
Name of the high school again? Berkshire?
Berkshire, yeah. It was in a suburb of Cleveland, but kind of a suburban/rural suburb. It was actually bordering on Amish country, so pretty homogenous. I think that there was one black person in the class, so the school agreed that we could take all their juniors and their entire junior class. They had the first all-day Project Love experience. I'd never produced a video before. All of a sudden, I'm in a studio, and studios are helping me produce a video to kick it off. And at the end of the day, great experience. At the end of the day, instant dialogue after the video, which the video was very interesting because I took Holocaust.
What was that video about?
Well, it was taking Holocaust survivors and showing the images of the Holocaust, juxtaposing them with black mothers talking about killing in the inner city. In the background was music about kindness and love, from the 60s, Peter, Paul, and Mary, and Joan Baez, and, etc. After that video, which jarred their sensibilities, they were prompted into a series of questions. Well, how does this relate to your school? How does this relate to what's going on in your life? The dialogue erupted. Immediately. It was wonderful to see.
So right out of the gate, you had this really unusual idea, and then you had within that unusual idea an unusual idea for this provocative video that would spark thought and conversation. And you had this all. It was all ephemeral. You walk in, you hit the button on the time machine, and it plays, and you got exactly the reaction you were looking for. You must have been startled.
I was just startled. And then what's even more startling is that the kids obviously went away on summer break. We had summer break. The following October, the principal, Dave Beaton, is calling me, and he said, "You got to come and talk to these kids." The reason I had given them, I was always wondering, why did he, for something that was unproven, why did he give us the entire junior class? He said, well, this had been the meanest group of kids that he'd ever had in his being involved in 35 years of public education. And he said, they came back in September. They were the nicest kids, and they're transforming our school. And sure enough, I went up, and they said that it was the project, all the kids said it was the Project Love experience, that for the first time in their quasi-adult lives, they were able to talk about serious things and about transformation, about the kind of life that they wanted, the kind of school that they wanted, the kind of world that they wanted, in a serious way, and in a civil way, and in a kind way. And they formed many of those kids formed our first curriculum committee. Then we started adding train-the-trainer seminars. We had a television show that was on PAX TV nationally for several years, which had teenagers and national experts interfacing on subjects such as teen drinking and teen suicide. And all of that was meant to give the teacher in the classroom the ability to spark these serious conversations. Ultimately, we realized that in order to grow, we had to do something that the classroom teacher or the guidance counselor could grab onto and run with in a transformational kind of way. And that led to Kindland, which we launched in 2019. We currently
What is Kindland?
So Kindland is an immersive curriculum and messaging campaign that schools and communities do. So our philosophy was, in this era of negativity and toxicity, which we all feel every day, and it takes 5 positives to offset 1 negative in the human mind. You can't separate the air between school and community. So we wanted to come upon a central value that could grow organically, that could be involved in the school, that the kids could take to community, that the community can reinforce, that local businesses and local government could be involved with, that media could be involved with. And we came upon this concept of building a Kindland together, so that it no longer was school. And our motto, which is Northeast Ohio, we have, as an example, 200 other nonprofit organizations involved in pushing Kindland, from the Red Cross to the food bank to Meals on Wheels to the various hospitals, etc. They're all pushing this concept of building a Kindland. And in the schools are pushing the concept of building a Kindland with hard curriculum and with messaging. In the community, we have billboards.
So 30 years ago, you had your own health challenges, which is frankly amazing that it was just a withdrawal from a drug that caused these issues for you. What drug was it?
Klonopin. Don't take Klonopin. And don't be on it for 2.5 years.
Got it. And so you have this terrible reaction. Thank goodness your wife is a caring, thoughtful, and a professional person in this arena. Challenges you to go get some help from a cognitive therapist. That works. You take on a path of visual imaging, trying to heal yourself, and that works. And it all culminates in you being inspired to say, hey, I've been able to make a good living in my life, but because of this experience, I feel the need to do something bigger and more impactful. And you start out to create Values in America Foundation, which includes Project Love, and then from that emerges this idea within that of Kindland, which is a curriculum and a program and a series of sessions where people gather to talk about common needs, interests, wants, and you facilitate that primarily, it sounds like, through school systems.
Well, it starts in school systems. It goes to local government. There are many local governments that have Kindland, and then they bring in their local school. It's in the hospitals. It's in local businesses. And now we're expanding that across the country. Now we have 4,500 Kindland schools across the country in every 50 states now.
Wow.
And last year we trained over 200,000 new students. So to date, since 1994, we have trained 2.1 million students.
So, Stuart, that begs this question. You know in your heart and your soul and in the evidence you see anecdotally that this is making a difference. When the skeptics say, prove it to me, what kind of metrics can you give them? What kind of data can you share?
We intervened in the most difficult Cleveland public school in 2017, for example. The prior year, they had lost 4 young men to gang violence. By 2020, through our programming, the graduation rate increased from 50% to 93%. The suspensions reduced by 78%, and there were 0 fights in the school. You know, there aren't 0 fights in many suburban schools, Jim.
There aren't 0 fights in my home, and I don't win one of them.
One of our other schools, through our Kindland programming, from 2022 to 2023, violence decreased 80%. The effect of kindness is really astounding because you can take a little kernel. For example, we're trying to push the idea right now of A-OK today. Do one act of kindness or A-OK every day. Now, Ohio State came out with a study of doing one act of kindness every day with depressed and anxious patients. So they had a control group of people who did nothing. They had another control group of people who took meds. And then they had this control group of people who did one act of kindness every day. And that group that did one act of kindness every day eliminated their depression and anxiety. We have the largest pediatric practice in Northeast Ohio. The doctor, Shelley Senders, about 5 years ago started prescribing one act of kindness and one statement of gratitude every day to his depressed and anxious patients when the mothers or fathers brought them in. His prescriptions have decreased by 80% because of that. In the workplace, Coca-Cola did a study in one of their factories where they implemented kindness, and pro-social behavior increased 253%. Not only our metrics, but the research on kindness is pretty rich and pretty deep.
Here at the Flowers Companies, we're in the business of helping people express and connect. Lots of times that includes a gifting experience. And the data, the science is absolutely clear that, and our way of phrasing it is that giving is the gift, because the giver gets as much out of the whole experience as the recipient does, and it's measurable, and it's chemical, and it releases endorphins in the brain, no question about it. Dopamines are clear, And we just had Dr. George Everly, the renowned psychologist from Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, speak with our leadership here and explain the whole science of why he thinks we're on the right path with giving is the gift. But giving, as you say, or an act of kindness or an act of gratitude, I think that's a wonderful prescription. And this begs a question for you, Stuart. Give me an example, a drill down, a person that you know in your program that you think your program impacted, and tell me their story. Who is it?
We've impacted so many people, but one individual who I don't want to mention his name, but he was a gang leader, did drive-by shootings. He went through our Project Love all-day workshop. The principal comes up to me a couple weeks later, and he asked me, could I meet with this young man, because he wanted to be a group leader and he wanted to go to other schools and train other students at these interactive workshops. And he told me the guy's background, and I said to the principal, Theodis Phipps, said, you really think this is appropriate? He said, yeah, just meet with him. Took him to lunch, and I asked him, why do you want to be a group leader? Why do you want to continue and pay it forward? And he said, before this all-day experience, I didn't know that there was another way. So, what kindness does, what gratitude does, and what just the simple act of caring, of, demonstrating that there are people out there who care, is a paradigm shift for lots of people. As you know, Jim, the Surgeon General issued a report last year on social isolation, and said that we are in an epidemic of negativity and social isolation. And we can counter that through acts of kindness and interacting with people. And we've seen that. We've seen students in high school who are isolated and go through our all-day experience, or go through a module on kindness that a teacher gives them, because we've broken up that first Project Love program into Kindland modules that are in those 4,500 schools. And they realize that they're not alone and that people truly care, and that changes their lives. I know that there have been examples of students who have wanted to commit suicide. And after going through our all-day experience, they said that they realized that people truly care, because people demonstrated to them that they truly care. It's just a prescription for our times. You've come upon it through the gift of giving. And you're absolutely right that not only does that create the endorphins and reduce cortisol, so there's the chemical reaction, but that gift of giving actually impacts a minimum of 3 people. So it impacts the giver, it impacts the recipient, and it impacts the observer. So anybody who sees it, if you see a gift of flowers, a neighbor's porch or step, you smile, because you see that somebody is caring about somebody else. Without even knowing the circumstances, you smile. So it impacts that casual observer as well. And that's what we need. That's what we need in our society, Jim.
Indeed, we do. I like the way you talk about the prescriptive nature of the behaviors that you're trying to stimulate here. Talk to me about the impact of social media. We're all conscious of the loneliness epidemic, the tragedy of the suicide rates, the lack of interactivity. Social media comes along. It seems to me that was the great promise of people having more connectivity, and indeed, in many cases, it does. But there's so much criticism that it's exaggerated the idyllic lives that don't really exist, and it's exaggerated loneliness. I still think it can be a great tool for connectivity, for relationships. It is in my life, but I'm not the average user. I'm a broken down old guy. But social media is a very positive influence in my life in terms of staying connected with my kids, my grandkids, and my friends. It's a very positive influence. But I understand how it can be negative. How do you think about using social media to achieve your goals, to impact people, to have a sense of a mission, a sense of kindness, a learning about the rewards of the impact of their behaviors?
Well, I think it's a very timely question for our times, especially as government is looking at the impact of social media as well. Our take on social media is that it's like fire. It can, just like fire, you can make a great meal through fire. You can also burn down a house through fire.
Interesting.
And social media is very similar in that you can have a wonderful experience as you and I do in connecting with people. Or, if you're a student who's being cyberbullied in school, you could have a living hell that repeats itself every day, even outside of the classroom. And what we've advocated for, first of all, we have an app, which is a kindness reporting app that's called Just Be Kind. 3 simple words, Just Be Kind. It's available on all the app stores. We're going through a nationwide competition now called the Kindness Games, kind of the opposite of the Hunger Games. And the Kindness Games, it enables schools to put the greatest number of acts of kindness on our Just Be Kind app. And they're competing for recognition. They're competing for $55,000 in prize money. And so our solution is that we throw kindness into the mix of social media whenever we can. And, it's like the scales of justice. Do we tip it this way or do we tip it that way? Do we tip it through the negativity of social media, or do we use social media as a force for good?
Let me ask you this. A lot of our community members here that will watch this, hear this, run businesses or departments in big businesses or divisions. And what kind of programming do you have that they could tap into to create the appropriate dialogue among their team members about kindness, about the impact of their behaviors, and about how they can be proactive about improving their lives? No matter how good they already are, they can be better. What kind of programming do you have?
The program that we want businesses to latch onto is the Kindland program. So they can go on to bekindland.com and they can see all of the available templates that are available for businesses involving their employees in reporting acts of kindness on the app, involving their employees in doing 1 act of kindness a day. And frankly, we are hopeful that Kindland and kindness can overtake DEI in the corporate arena. Because if you put the K in front of inclusion and diversity, it becomes KIND. And I think that's what everyone wants. So we are advocating the 1 act of kindness a day in the corporate world, and we're advocating KIND in the corporate world. And we are currently developing a list that we will be reporting out in 2025 with a major business publication of the 100 kindest companies in the United States in an effort to spark the Kindland and kindness movement throughout corporate America.
And how do you do that research?
We're basing the research on already published and public data, and we're basing it on a 10-point scale that looks at kindness messaging, efforts for diversity, efforts for inclusion, reporting from employees as to how they're treated. There are many indices, including the the Forbes Social Impact List, the Gallup Best Companies List, etc., that we're drawing all that data from.
Let's take a step back first. How does this all work for you, Bob? How do you fund this? How do you keep it going? We open the hood. What's going on in there? How does this work? How do you, obviously you're driven to make it bigger, to reach more and more people. What are the mechanics of this?
We're very fortunate. We have a 3.3 million annual budget. We're funded by families. We're funded by two major fundraisers that we do. One of which gives out the Malden Knowles Corporate Kindness Award, which is this June. We give out an annual Rescue of Humanity Award, which this June is going to General David Petraeus. We raise a lot of money through that. We raise a lot of money through a fundraiser in the fall as well. And then we piece together our budget through a combination of government funding. We are very focused through our Kindland initiative on making Ohio the kindness state as a model.
It might have started out pretty high on the list to begin with.
Yeah, and we're very fortunate. We get $1.5 million from the state of Ohio budget. And the balance of the money comes from foundations, from corporate sponsors, etc. We're reaching out currently to major companies for sponsorship of Kindland because we believe that Kindland is an investment in their company and an investment in the future of our country. So we are looking at our expansion throughout the United States as coming largely from corporate sponsorships.
Well, in the minute that we have left, Stuart, what message, our community is very influential. What message would you like to bring to our community? How can they get involved? How can they help Stuart Muszynski and the Values in Action Foundation and helping you to make Kindland and the dream of Kindland become a reality?
Well, I would encourage people to go on to bekindland.com, to be a kindness ambassador in spreading the word, in using the app, in bringing it into your companies, in bringing it into your communities. Because at the end of the day, if we are not Kindland ambassadors, if we're not shaping the culture of our country, then by default, the culture is shaping itself. And I think that most thoughtful people do not like the culture that's occurring in our country with the culture of negativity and meanness and negativity in social media, negativity with restaurant workers, negativity in public discourse. It really is a culture that is shaping itself in a negative way by default. And unless we push back and shape that culture of kindness, we're all going to be disappointing our children and grandchildren.
Stuart, I think your life story, particularly that 1994 turning point in your life, where you decided not to have things happen to you, but to shape your life by your own behaviors going forward, is a living testament to what you just talked about. If you don't measure it, if you don't manage it, if you don't try and influence it, it will manage and influence you, and that's not necessarily positive. So that which is measured, Peter Drucker taught us, improves. That which is not measured deteriorates. And you want to measure it and you want to impact it, and indeed you're doing that. Congratulations, Stuart, on the good work you're doing at Kindland. We're happy to have been introduced to you, to get to know you, to help you. I can't wait to see what reaction people have to your story and the work that you're doing, and I hope we get to play a role in shining an awful bright light on what you do, because it's important and it's making a difference. Thanks, Stuart Muszynski, and thank you for what you're doing in Kindland.
And Jim, thank you also for shining a bright light through the products that you distribute and through this podcast. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart. Talk to you soon.
Great. Be well.